Back to the stage, Matt and Tyler. They left chairs for us here. Well, let's start. I was curious, you know, at what point were you like, you know, you guys have achieved many, many really interesting horror genres. At what point were you like, we want to make a vampire movie now?
I'm not sure that if you asked us that before Abigail, we would have said that we wanted to. Honestly, I think that it's one of those monsters that like we have such a fond connection to, given the movies that we grew up watching and loving. And I think that it was gonna just take something really special and weird to make us wanna like step in to that, you know, that lore and kind of tell our version of that sort of a story. And I mean, we're so grateful that this crazy genre mashup of a vampire story existed and that it crossed our paths, because I think we feel such a connection to this movie, and we think it's such a reflection of things that we love when we make a movie, and certainly when we go and we see a movie.
Yep. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. When you talk about, you know, things that you love, I'm curious what some of your influences are. There's some that feel like they stand out to me, but I'm curious what were the ones that you guys brought up to you.
I mean, we talked about the ones that we grew up with, like Lost Boys, a lot. Interview with the Vampire, Near Dark, Let the Right One In, From Dusk Till Dawn. And I think the thing that we kind of landed on was that we love all those movies, and they all have things in common, but they're also very different. And that allowed us to kind of feel really comfortable going into this and being like, oh, we can kind of make this our own. We can put our stamp on this, and the rules are a little bendable, and like we kind of make them up the way we feel they fit this story. And I think there was something in that was really freeing, and it kind of allowed us to just like flow through on it.
Let's talk about the casting a little bit, because they're all so incredible. You've had some experience with the amazing Melissa Ferrera, but I think from beginning to end, every member of this cast is really perfect. I'm curious, did you have them in mind when reading the script, working on the script? Was there any challenges in putting the cast together?
There were tons of challenges. I think we've somehow found ourselves as the ensemble guys. I mean, since Ready or Not, we haven't made a movie that didn't feature at least 6 characters. And I think the thing that we've sort of learned, and that Ready or Not was really the training ground for, is that an ensemble is only as good as its sort of weakest character. Yeah. And a lot of that starts on the page with the way the characters are drawn, but really sort of finishes with the casting. And we wanted to make sure that every character in this movie felt like they had a real reason to exist in the story, and that they weren't just expendable faces that weren't memorable. And when we started casting it, it was just clear that what was on the page was really great, but that for those characters to feel really different, and for the ensemble, we talk a lot about this movie like a horror version of The Breakfast Club. For it to genuinely feel like that, we had to cast people that were willing, that not only understood the tone and how weird and silly and also sort of serious and earnest it is at times. People who are willing to color outside of the lines, to look at what was on the page and go, oh, this is a really fun blueprint. How can I own this and take it to that weird next level that's gonna be really crackly and memorable? And I mean, we say all the time that, you know, the goal is to reach the end of the process and watch the movie, and to be able to look at each other and say, I can't imagine what this movie would be without Melissa. I can't imagine what it'd be without Angus, without Alicia, without Dan, without Will, without Kevin, right? All of those characters, they just feel so specific to the performers that have brought them to life. And we're so proud of the group that we brought together for this.
I'll also say, I'll ask one more and then open it up to the audience, but I'll say, you know, I can't imagine what this movie would be without you guys in the way that you blend comedy and horror and comedy and thriller and play with the genre. And I'm curious, what attracts you to bring those two things together? What attracts you to wanting to blend those things together? Because you do it so seamlessly, like so much better than almost anybody else working right now.
I mean, I really appreciate that from both of you. I think it's what we like, honestly, at the end of the day. You know, we like serious, real stories about real people doing real things, but we also like goofy, silly shit.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of put those together is just our taste. And I think that at the end of the day, each one of those sides of the coin actually really complements each other. Right. And you know, honestly, thanks to you guys, because this is one of the first times we've seen it with a crowd who knew nothing about it, or who had not seen it or wasn't attached to it, and seeing some of those jokes land and hearing the laughs. I mean, we were back there going like, oh, fuck, like that works, because you don't really know. We're sitting in a room, you know, with us and Mike, our editor, and we find it entertaining and funny, but we don't know if it's really landing beyond that. And so to hear it tonight was really, really special for us.
I'm going to open it up to the audience. If anybody have any questions, we'll start right here.
You both do an amazing job making what might be traditional villain characters is very likable. Nearly everybody in this film was kind of a villain. Do you have any tips about how you're able to make all these kind of anti-heroes so hero-y?
So the question just for the audience was about making villains likable and making anti-heroes likable, because you're so good at making almost everyone likable in all of your movies.
Yeah, I think that the goal first and foremost is to just make them interesting. I think if someone is interesting, if the character is interesting, even if they're morally reprehensible, like literally every character in this movie, you just want to watch, right? And if you understand and you see those characters that are bad also struggling with who they are, I think that's a really important thing. That, I mean, we all do bad shit. I hope no one has kidnapped a ballerina in this audience, but we all have done things in our lives that we're like, man, I wish I could have done that differently. And so when you can watch a character that you might label as like an anti-hero struggle a little bit with who they are and why they are, I think that that's really humanizing, right? That opens this door for you to relate, and for us, that's just like where those interactions live, right? Those characters, you put a bunch of those people together and you watch them sort of point fingers at each other and question each other, and are you good and why are you bad? And that for us, I think, was really, in a lot of ways, the special sauce of this movie. And it goes for the character Abigail as well, right? She's terrible, but you're weirdly sort of rooting for her, and you love her, and you want her to win, but you also want Joey to win. It was the interesting challenge of this movie, but I think at the end of the day, the goal was just to make them all really interesting and dimensional, right? They're not defined by the bad things that they've done. There's more to them than their worst deed, and I think that for us was just a fun thing to explore with the entire cast, with all the entire ensemble.
I'm gonna go back here. Yeah, right there. Yes.
Cool. What was the most challenging scene to shoot?
So the question was, what was the most challenging scene to shoot?
Yeah,
I feel like
really good question. I don't know if we have enough time, but I think the one that we've talked about a lot and agreeing on is the scene where they first go and attack her when she's dancing with the headless body. It was just a lot to choreograph, a very small place, to cover a lot of action, to try to figure out how to keep the tone alive in that, so it's exciting and fun, and you know, like kind of like what Tyler was just saying, it's 3 bad guys and another bad guy, and they're all fighting. It's like, whose side am I on? And to try to keep all of that alive, story-wise, while also just the technical aspect of trying to capture it all properly was difficult. Yeah. I think that's probably.
Yeah, I think the other one we'd say is that final fight was. I think that it was like 6 days of shooting and over 380 camera setups, which is not atypical for action.
How many pounds of blood?
But yeah, but it required, I mean, our cast, Dan, Melissa, Alicia, every day getting into that look was just like a grueling thing. They all were super game for it for the first like 6 days, and by like days 7 and 8, they were ready. We were all ready to be done shooting that sequence. But I think, you know, you know when it's working, and I think it makes those hard sequences easy to finish when you feel like that magic exists in what you're capturing.
Right. Right here.
The movie reminded me sometimes of the usual suspects. I don't know if crazy or if it was deliberate.
No, we talked about it.
It's funny because that was when I said I had references in my head. I said, a joke we've been saying on the staff is it's like Usual Suspects if Kaiser Soze was a vampire child.
We talked about that. Oh, we were like, yeah, there's the Usual Suspect scene, and it's kind of got that vibe where, again, to your question, they're all bad, and they all kind of reveal things about each other, and it was a big influence.
Right here. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, love the movie. Honestly, I think it's the best movie you've made. Also, I have to ask, how freaking stoked were you guys when you found Alicia was here and cast her? Because oh my god, she's a trooper.
How stoked were you when you found Alicia?
I mean, I think that we were stoked when we met her on the audition because we just knew. We knew that she was amazing. She scared us during her audition. She actually, the scene that she read, there was like a jump scare, like a turn in the scene, and she hadn't prepared anybody on the Zoom for what she was gonna do, and she like legit scared the shit out of us. It was like one of the most memorable.
You should release
auditions
that
I
as a
think
short.
we'll ever experience. And then immediately after, she was just like the sweetest, loveliest girl you've ever met, and. But I think what you see in an audition is always such a siloed thing, and then when you're on set, right, and you're surrounded by the apparatus of movie making, like there's a lot of pressure and there's a clock and there's just a lot more happening, and so I think that our anxieties stuck around and until we shot that like first scene with her, first thing we shot with her, we were just like, oh, we're all standing on Alicia's shoulders. She's carrying everybody. She's more prepared. She is more present and more here for this movie than any of us. And that was true every single day. And obviously she deploys like every talent imaginable in this movie. Action, like long dialogue scenes, emotion, mega stunt choreography. I mean, it's like a vaudevillian level talent in this movie, and she did it all so effortlessly and with such curiosity and joy. I mean, it was like really just one of the most remarkable things to get to experience.
Back there in the corner.
Me?
Behind you. Yes.
I got a silly question, but I think a lot of people here will agree. Between the time of Ready or Not to this, do you guys feel you've perfected the exploding body jump scare?
We're working really hard at it.
Yeah.
We're really trying. So I don't know if we're there yet, but we're a step in the right direction.
Right here.
A quick follow-up to the action sequences you were speaking about. When things are that intricate and over that long of a period of time, what are the conversations like between all the departments and working points? How long does it go from conception to?
So the question was about choreographing complicated action sequences and the conversations between departments.
For this movie specifically, extremely long because we basically shot the first 2 acts before the strikes, or before the actor strike. And then when the actor strike happened, we went back to LA, we edited the first 2 acts, and then actually went into hiatus for I think maybe like a week or 2 before going back to Dublin to finish filming. And everything we shot, 90% of what we shot when we went back was the 3rd act. So we had months to talk about, well, what do we need here? What do we actually need to get? And so what you guys all saw is quite different than what we would have shot if we were already there. We kind of found a little silver lining in that we were able to like see the movie all the way up to that point and then go make adjustments. So the conversations had started in May, April when we were out there originally, but then back into full gear in September, October, November, we were heading back. But everybody, all the department heads were extremely aligned with each other and with us. And I think everybody kind of got the general idea of it going back in because we had shown them what we edited while we were home. And so it really helped just like, hey, we're all on the same page, let's go do this or that.
Right here.
Obviously the film is dedicated to Angus. What can you guys share about the experience of editing his performance after
So the question was about editing Angus's performance after his passing.
I was super emotional, honestly. Like we were both watching tonight, in front of an audience for the first time. It was actually really sort of beautiful and hard to watch. It was remarkable. I mean, Angus is like one of those one-of-a-kind talents that I think if you're lucky enough, you get to work with one of them in your career, and we're so fortunate to have had like his breeze sort of blow through our lives, because it was truly wonderful. I mean, every day on set was just something so special, and I don't think we've ever met somebody who was quite as charismatic and as in the moment as he was. I'm not sure we've ever met an actor that sort of rallies the cast around them quite the way that Angus does. Everyone is just listening so carefully with him, because everything that comes out of his mouth is just like the greatest, funniest, most wonderful and authentic thing you could imagine. And so, I mean, it was beautiful to get to edit him, right? To sort of get to live with him a little bit longer in post, and we certainly feel the responsibility of the movie to let his legacy live on, and we just can't say enough about how touched we are that we got to know him.
I'm also, just to add one fun little story from set. This is Catherine's story. Catherine and him were hanging out, and she was like enamored with the way he was so in the moment, and always just like never inauthentic. Like nothing would come out forced, and he was incapable of it. And she said to him some version of, you kind of remind me of like Marlon Brando. You just are always like in the moment. And he goes, thank you. I don't know who Marlon Brando is. And I feel like that encompasses a lot of him in such a beautiful way.
I'm making sure I'm not missing this side. Oh, over here on the wall? Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, did y'all ever have any trouble balancing the tone of the movie during the editing process?
So the question was about balancing the tone of the movie during the editing process?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because we always want to. I think we always do a version that's maybe too goofy, and then we make a version that's too serious, and then we kind of find our way through it. But it's kind of what we do on every movie. But on this one, I think more than any, because we had such great actors and a lot of improv. There was a ton of improv on this movie. Like, so much more than anything we've done in the past, and you want to use it all because it's all fun and entertaining and it's good, and it's especially kind of like to the Angus thing, is like you get to know these people, you really have a good time with them, you're like, oh, that's such a fun moment. And then you have to take a step back and go, all right, it's great, but it's not great for the movie, but it's great for us, but not for the movie. And you kind of have to be really honest with yourself as we go through it, and we kind of hold each other's feet to the fire and micro editor and just kind of go like, is this good or just like outside of the lines? And we play that game from day one in the edit until we're done.
We have time for a couple more. I'm going to go right there.
The movie looked like an absolute blast to film. What was your favorite scene to shoot out of all of it?
What was your favorite scene to shoot?
I mean, that scene in the club room where when they finally make it to the mansion and Joey calls everybody out, she sort of pegs everyone in the room. That was our first day of shooting. And there's always this incredible amount of anxiety when you're going into a movie, just how that first day is going to go and what the dynamic is going to be and how the set's going to run and all of that. There's so much stress around that first day. And we got on set to shoot a big ensemble scene, I don't know, five pages of dialogue, 5.5 pages of dialogue. And everyone just like clicked in. And we were behind the monitor just going, oh fuck, like this is, if it's like this, then we've got it made. And just watching everybody so comfortably sort of sink into their roles, but also sink into the dynamic of the ensemble that you then watch for the rest of the movie. There was a real feeling of relief, and I think when the machine, the production machine, and the cast, when that's all firing on all cylinders, there's just like nothing more wonderful than to be behind the monitor and just watch it all happen.
One more right here.
movie was great.
Thank you.
But I was just curious about the teeth choice that you guys did. There's so many variations of vampire teeth, but why the choice that y'all was doing?
So the final question is, why this choice of teeth? There's so many variations of vampire teeth.
We wanted something that was really animalistic and just felt kind of like a shark, or just kind of gross and fucked up and gnarly. And we talked about it a lot and ended up on they're all different. Like if you look at them, everyone's got their own kind of teeth vibe. And it was a big part of the process, but it was really fun to kind of decide, let's make them all animalistic, but then let's give them all their own personalities. So, I mean, it's hard to see when you're just watching it in a theater, but if you look at each of them, they're totally different. And they also had just a fun little side story. We had like the safety version and the not safety version. And that was one of the bigger headaches when we were shooting the fight scenes, because you do for like close-ups, you'd be in the cool looking version, and you have to swap them out, send somebody away, get new teeth, and come back, do it again. It was fun.
Well, I think we got to wrap up, but I want to thank you guys for coming and sharing the world premiere of Abigail with us.
Thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in.